Hi, welcome again to my channel Gateway to IT. And today we're going to discuss about the prerequisites of SCCM. In our previous videos, we have discussed about the one of the prereq, which is Windows 10 with Hyper-V installed on it, which is already done. Now, the next prerequisite was virtual router, which we have already created. And in the previous video, you can look at that. Now, we're going to work on another prereq, which will be one server which should have AD role installed on it. In other words, I can say this should be the Active Directory infra which we're going to create for our SCCM lab. Now let's discuss what will be there in that infra and why we need to create this infra. So again, the same example. So in this, I'm going to show you that I will be creating my India site. When I say I will be creating my India site, that means I'm going to create one domain controller with all the roles installed on it. And then I'm going to create a router. This router is already created and this subnet is also created. Now, the domain controller DNS has to be created. Once this is done, we're going to create a SCCM environment. But we are at this stage right now where we have to create our Active Directory environment or infrastructure for our lab, for our SCCM lab. And later on, once we complete all this for India site, later on in later videos, we're going to create a Denver environment at a different subnet, so we can also understand the concept of two different subnets or two different sites across the world, which we used to get in our offices or any organization. So let's discuss what exactly we're going to create in this lab and AD infrastructure. So the very first thing which I'm going to create is one virtual machine with the server operating system installed on it, which will be Server 2019. In my case, you can install any of them. Make sure that it should be the latest one. 2016 or 2019 will be good. Now, after that, I'm going to install a domain controller role on it. For India site, I'm going to name it as an IND. That will be my India site domain controller. And I'm going to install the domain naming services role on that. And that after that, I'm going to create the security groups for SCCM. So the first security group which I'm going to create is for full admins. This group and in this CM_full admins, I'm going to add only those members who should have full access to the SCCM, who can do anything on SCCM. Operational admins are the group which I'm going to create. The second group is for like we use. These are the role-based access we're going to create and we're going to understand in the later point, but I will still create these groups just to be on a safer side. Later on, I'll show you the use of these groups. So operational admin is something like if you want to restrict some access for any user. Let's say you only want in your environment that a admin should only be able to push the patches or do the patching activity or deploy the applications or reporting and all those. So that kind of role you can assign to that admin and you can add them in operational admin group. We need to create a role-based access for that, and that we can understand at later point once we have a SCCM ready. I will show you that as well, how you can create a role-based access. Now, the third, we're going to create a read-only. So again, it is again a role-based access where we will be having the admin added who only have a read access to the SCCM console. They cannot do any modification in SCCM. They can only read. They can only see the data information in that. Now, the fourth one will be security group for SCCM site server and site system. So I'm going to create a security group in which I'm going to add all the computer account of my site system and site server. So I can add them or I can give the permission to this particular group to the system management container. So system management container is something where you publish the site information. So now the service group, I'm going to create a service account for SQL service, then service account for network access, which is required for software distribution, and client push account installation. So I'm going to create these three service accounts. And as I told, system management container is also needs to be created in order to publish the site information. Site information is something like where you can, we need to extend the schema for that. I will show you at later point how you can extend the schema. So in that you can publish your site information like SMS site code, SMS MP, SMS SLP, or SMS site code. These are the site information you can publish under system management, and from where your client can get the information about your SCCM server, SCCM management points for the communication. So that's what we're gonna do in this. Now let's start creating the Active Directory infrastructure. So let's do a lab for that. So in order to create the Active Directory infra for the SCCM lab, we need to install a Windows Server operating system. So for that, we need to create a virtual machine, which I'm going to create right now. And make sure before you create this Windows Server operating system for the Active Directory or for the domain infra, then you have to make sure that you have this router installed. You can look at my previous videos for this router. Now let's begin and say next, and I'm going to name it as an -DC1. So that will be my domain controller for the India site. And as I've shown you in the example, we're going to create two different sites. One is in India, one is in Denver. For now, for the basics, we're going to start with India site, and later on we're going to add the site. So I'm going to save it in a different location. Okay. Generation 2. But now I'm removing the dynamics and 2048. Later on I can change it because it does not require much memory. So you can give it 1 GB. So you can change it to 1024. That will be fine. Next. Now I'm going to connect to LAN 1 because LAN 1 is my India network. Reduce it to 50 gigs. That will be fine because I don't have to do more in this. Okay, so this is an ISO which I've downloaded from the evaluation version. So I'm going to give you a link in the description from where you can download the ISO for server 2019. So it's free and it's a trial version. So I'll provide that information to you. And finish. Okay, let's start it. Okay, so we have to select next. Install that. I'm going to install the data center evaluation version with desktop experience and hit next. Accept the license, hit next, and then next. So here I'm gonna pause the video for a second, and once this gonna install properly, we're gonna start it again. Okay, so the server operating system has been installed now. So this is what you get at the beginning. So you have to set a local password. This will be the local admin password. Now log in with the same password which you have created. Okay. Now the very first thing which you have to do is you have to provide an IP address to this server. It's ncpa.cpl. You can open the network connections here and you have to go for properties. Under properties, you will get IPv4 and you can change the IP address here to 192.168. I'm sorry. So it's 192.168.1.1. That will be my IP address or my domain controller, and default gateway will be the same which I have shown in the previous video when we are creating the router. It will be 192.168.1.254. Now DNS server I'm gonna give same 192.168.1.1, or we can also give a loop back. Okay, great. Now after this you have to change the name of the server, because obviously we gonna give a different name. So mine will be ind-dc1. You can give whatever you want. Click OK. Okay. And then we're gonna ask for the reboot. Let's wait for the reboot. Okay, same password. So now the reboot has been completed. Now after this you have to go to the server manager, which is already opening. However, you have to wait for it. Okay, now go to manage. Go to add roles and features. Next. So whatever settings which I'm going to do right now, it will be only for SCCM lab, which is required for SCCM lab in other words, if I can say that. So I'm going to install the Active Directory domain services. That's what the role we have to install, and the DNS. And hit next. I don't have to do anything here. Hit next. 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 And install. Now it is installing the AD role and the DNS role, both of them. So let's pause the video for a few minutes because it's gonna take a few minutes to install. Okay, now the roles has been installed. We can close this window. Now we have to go to this notification flag and then we have to click on this option which says promote this server to a domain controller. I'm going to click on that. And then now this will be a new forest for me. So my root domain name will be gateway to IT. You can give whatever you want. Com. Hit next. Now it's gonna ask me for, so just follow these steps. We don't have to do anything else for now. So you are setting up the password for the domain admin account on this page. So hit next. Next, don't have to do anything here. Okay, we can hit next again. That will be my NetBIOS name for domain controller. Okay, hit next. Next. And it's checking for the prerequisites. It's validating them right now. So all prerequisite was successful. Now we have to hit install. Now again, it's gonna take a few minutes to install, so I'm gonna pause the video. So as soon as installation will finish, the server will reboot and automatically. Now the server is rebooting. Okay, so now our domain controller is up after reboot, and we have to log in. And now we have to log in with our domain credentials. So domain password will be the one which you have set in the very beginning when you're configuring the domain controller. The username will be administrator. So I have logged in with my domain administrator on this server. Now the next thing we have to do is, now we have created a VM with server operating system on which we have installed a domain controller for our India site, which is done. Now installation for the DNS role is also completed. Now the next step is to create the security groups and the service account for our SCCM environment. And once that is done, we're going to create a system management container which is used to publish the site information on the domain, and so the clients can get those information. So these are the remaining part which we're going to do now. Now in order to create the security groups and the service accounts, first we have to go to start, and then we have to go to administrative tools, and then we have to open Active Directory users and computers. Once we open the Active Directory users and computers, we have to create two different OUs first. So the first OU will be CM_accounts, where we're gonna put all the accounts which we're gonna create, like the security account and the service account. And the second will be CM_servers. So in this way, we're gonna add all the servers like primary site server. If we add secondary, distribution point, management point, so all the servers will be the part of this particular OU. So after creating these two OUs, our next step will be creating the accounts. So let's create a group. So that will be the first security group. So CM_4 full admins. That will be, you have to check global and the security and click OK. So the first group has been created. Now we're gonna create the second group. Second group will be CM underscore OP admin. So operational admin. Okay, second also created. Now the third group will be CM underscore read only. And the last will be CM underscore site servers. So all the security groups has been created. Now we're going to create the service account. So the first service account will be CM underscore MSSQL. So this will be service account for our SQL. And then we're going to hit next. Uncheck this option. Oh, sorry. You can put the password first. Okay, now uncheck this option and check password to never expire. Next and finish. Now the second service account will be network access account. So in this CM underscore NAP network access account, copy, we will paste the logon same, and next, and uncheck, check this option and set the password. Okay, now the password has been set. And the last account which we have to set is client push account. So CM underscore CPA client push account. And next, same thing. Okay, and password never expires. Next, finish. Okay, great. So these are the accounts which we have created and which are required for our lab. Later on, we're going to create the user accounts which we're going to add under these groups, like full admins, operational admins, or the read only. So we will create these accounts once we have the SCCM ready. So now this is done. Now next step will be so we have created all these accounts, and now the next step will be to create a system management container to publish the site information. So let's create the same. So in order to do it, you have to click on Start menu and you have to look for ADSI edit. Yep, hit enter. Now in that you have to say connect to, and okay. So once this is connected, I want you to double click on the default naming context and then a domain controller, and you have to come to system. Under system, you have to right click and then you have to create new object. So in object, you have to create a container. Select the container, hit next, and now the container name. So for us, the container name will be, it's not for us, it's that's how you put the container name. So, and make sure you put the same name, exact value which you are putting here. It's SYSTEM management. Okay, system management. Hit next. Don't have to do anything here right now and finish. So right now, if we just refresh it and see whether the system management container has been created. So now AD part is done, but we have to, in security, we have to add our servers. So when I say servers, it will be our primary site servers or secondary servers, which we will be creating for the for the videos. But for now, we only keep we only create the system management container. Later, once we create the primary site server, we have to come here on this particular ADSI edit, and then we have to add the object that will be a computer object for our primary site server. And if we create any secondary site, we can also add the secondary sites here. So we're gonna do this in a later point once we install the primary site server and when we have to extend the schema from SCCM. So we do not require it here right now because we do not have created any servers. So now the next concept which we have to understand in AD will be our AD sites. So as I've shown in the picture or we can see the example which I've showed, we have two different sites. One is in India, another one is in Denver. So in order to make that concept here, so first of all, let's understand why do we need sites in Active Directory. So the reason we need the sites in Active Directory, so we can utilize the local resources. We can do the utilization of the local resources. For example, let's say we have a machine in India site, and we have a domain controller in India site and one domain controller in Denver. So if I want my India machine not to authenticate with, if I want my India site to communicate with my India domain controller and not to go to the Denver for the authentication, so we create these sites. So we can have a better control with this kind of if we have the sites created. And obviously, like, we can utilize our local resources in a better way. When I say local resources, it can be like authentication purpose, file servers, or like in an SCCM, like a distribution point and all those. So we can control over that. So how to create the site? So obviously, when you I'm going to show you one more time. Once you open dsite.msc and hit OK, you will be able to get this particular console, and you see this default first site name. So I'm going to rename this. I'm going to press F2, or you can just right click and rename, and I'm going to name this as an IND. So this will be my India site, and the subnet for this site will be, in order to create the subnet, I have to right click and new and subnet, and the subnet for this site will be 192.168.1.0, and my prefix will be 24. Okay. Now I have to select this site, I have to click OK. Now my subnet has been created for India site. Right now we are not creating the second site, but I'll show you how exactly the second site looks like, because if you see here, this particular subnet has been assigned to my India site. In the same way, we can do this the same thing at a later point as well, but for now I'm just show you how to create a new site. So you have to create new site. In new site, so let's say my new site will be Denver. So for that, I'm just putting DEN and click OK. Click OK. So my new site has been created. So Denver site. And let's say now I have to tell what is the subnet for my Denver site. So it will be like 192.168.2.0/24. And I have to select the Denver site and hit OK. And now I have two different sites. Now any machines which is from this subnet will only communicate to the Denver site. Any machines for this subnet will only communicate or utilize the local domain controller. So this is how we do the localization of the resources, and that's how we utilize it. Even for the authentication purpose, it does the same stuff. So that's it on the site. And also just to add on to the subnets, you can add the subnets as much as you can, and you can select the site, which site is that, and then we can go from there. So that's the Active Directory sites and servers. Now, that's how we have to create the Active Directory infrastructure, which has been created. Now, our next part which we have to do is we have to create a DHCP configuration. So we have to do a DHCP configuration on our pfSense router. So in order to create the DHCP, or in order to configure the DHCP, you have to log into the pfSense router. To access the pfSense router with GUI, I have to, I used my IP address for the same, which I have set in the beginning. It will be 192.168.1.254, and you have to log in. Once you're done with that, you have to go to services. Under services, you have to go to DHCP server. Under DHCP server, you can enable the DHCP, and you can check this option because this is for our LAN 01 and it is for our India site. So we will check this option, and we'll scroll down. We'll not do anything here. So here you can choose what range of IP address you want to give into the DHCP. So I'm setting it to .11 till 200. And at the later stage, you have to scroll it down. Obviously, you have to give your DNS. So my DNS will be 192.168.1.1 because that's where my domain controller is, and that's my domain controller IP address. And my gateway will be 192.168.1.254. So the machine will know the gateway. And my domain name will be obviously gateway2it.com. And once we're done with all these, make sure you check this option and the time format change, static graphics, and that's it. And you have to save this configuration. So as soon as you save this configuration, your DHCP should work. So in order to test whether DHCP is working or not, I'm gonna remove the IP address. So let's say ncpa.cpl. So I'm gonna open a network connections, go for properties. So I have configured it manually, but to just test if the DHCP is working or not, so I'm gonna make it automatically and save for this one and click OK. And obviously it says unidentified, and if you see this, now it got the IP address and the DNS name as well. So if I do IP config, I should be able to see my DNS. I got an IP address .100, and that's my default gateway. So this means that my DHCP is working fine. I'm getting that IP address from my DHCP automatically. So that is the end of the video where we have configured our we have created our Active Directory infrastructure and the DHCP configuration. Now in my next videos, we're gonna start installing our primary site server. So stay tuned for my next video, and thanks for watching.